recreating the Gilmore house, one room at a time. This time on Wildly Ordinary, we're focusing on Rory Gilmore's room, which is at the bottom right of the house. It is a spacious room with a bay window, but we also have to remember that there is a lintel that needs to be incorporated as well, so we'll use a doorway to achieve that look. We're going to use different reference images, but the Gilmore house does change quite a bit, sometimes even architecturally. So we're going to borrow from different elements, different photos, different tours that are available. But we're going to try and see what sticks. As these windows scale, they don't follow the reference exactly, but we're getting the vibe and we're here for vibes. There is a window above Rory's bed. Sometimes there are two windows of different sizes on that wall. And there is also a lot of clutter in her room, so this will give us more wall space to do that. I feel that Rory's bed is also iconic, and even though this isn't an exact match, it is pretty close. And the lovely thing in Paralives is that we get to change all of the details, all of the bedding, and apply different textures and textiles to them as well. Next to the bed are two units, and depending on when we are, which season we're in, they do swap around. Things tend to move quite frequently, but I want to look at this unit. It is white with green accents, and even though there's probably a better choice within the kitchen counter collection, I did want it to be a dresser, and we're taking some creative liberties by changing this unit with the drawers into something that matches pretty well. We know that there are fans of classic movies, so there's definitely a tiny little TV that is put in place. And above that one unit, she has shelves. I think it is mostly nostalgic because we can see a lot of toys on there, so we'll get to that. But Rory is a bookworm, so the more lamps and the more books we have, the better at the end of the day. The kitchen shelves above this unit was just too bulky, so scaling that down definitely helps. I messed around with the resizing of this lamp, but ultimately decided to go back to its original size. And then it's just a matter of adding all of the clutter. Even though we don't have the same editability when it comes to our wallpaper or wall paint, looking at the reference image next to this build, it is a pretty close match, and I'm very pleased with that. Rory has a lot of bears, there are a couple of dolls, and it is presumably from her childhood. So we're filling it with interesting knickknacks that she can have on display. I was quite envious when I watched Gilmore Girls growing up that she just had so many books, and for me it was a factor of time that she had so much time to read all of these books, and it was life goals, and I wanted to be a bookworm so badly, but it just never made sense to me how she managed to read so much all the time. And then I decided it's because this is probably her priority. There aren't any other extracurricular activities that take her away from that, and this is truly something that made her happy. I desperately wanted this blue lamp to sit on top of the TV like it is in the reference image, but it just didn't work. It looked kind of silly. So we're going to place it right there in the corner, squeeze it in there. It doesn't feel like it should be there, but then again, it's not out of the ordinary for Rory's room. I sourced images to match the posters on her wall. Her walls are covered almost everywhere. Also, once again, depending on where we are, in which season we are. On this corkboard, I have vivid memories of her Yale era. I also looked at bands that Rory liked, but it's just filling that space up with all sorts of information and interests that make her life fuller. It would be great to have some more options in terms of curtains in Paralives. The best option is to use some form of wicker, and that gives you a lacy effect. There are also blinds behind all of these sheer lace curtains, and I love the fact that we can adjust them individually so that it feels lived in and not just copy paste. When placing these curtains, I'm very well aware that the actual curtain rod is sticking out, but I did check they don't show through the wall on the exterior. The interior is another situation entirely, but we'll live with it. It's all for the greater good. And I do feel that because we have so many lamps, that fairy lights will not be overkill, so we might as well just add that to the mix. When you look at different scenes, the furniture changes. Sometimes there is a hi-fi, a radio on the side table there. I felt that I wanted to stay true to this reference image as much as I could. So instead we have a little round table there. They very rarely have matching furniture, and it really feels like they've gone antiquing or thrifting, and this is how they've built up their collection over the years. And that is what gives the Gilmore house its charm. So adding those touches really brings the space to life. And then we also just want to look at really how much clutter is there, because yes, every surface is filled, but we know that Rory is somewhere between really loving collecting books and resources, but also she's not the messiest person ever. I think Lorelai is a little messier than Rory is in these situations. I think we found a good solution for this linen kist at the bottom of the bed, and then in this particular situation we have some linen on top of it with a quilt, but I think it's a decent solution. Rory studies a lot, so we need a neat space, and I think the one we have in the base game here matches pretty well. We have a chair that is very similar, and the armchair. I am going to cheat a little bit because this armchair tends to move around in her room, and because the room is so large, I just decided to use 2 of these armchairs because I could validate it in my mind at the end of the day. We don't see the other side of Rory's room all that often, but there is this one moment where her grandmother comes in and she assesses the situation. And I have to say that this isn't normal for it to be quite so messy, but it does give us a decent idea of the layout. And as you can see, that armchair is in the foreground of the reference image. Now, in order to recreate this dresser, I had some mixed feelings. I wasn't sure how I was going to go about it. I used inspiration from vanities where you have the swivel mirror originally, and I thought that could work well, even though it is not the large single mirror we see. But I think it works, but maybe I'll change it a little bit later on. We took some creative liberties with the rug as well, and instead of having the larger rug, we'll add multiple rugs, and then it's just a case of filling up those nooks and crannies with lived-in clutter. I think this is the most important thing when it comes to the warmth that we find in the Gilmore Girls house. I was done and dusted with the room and continued on to the next room to build. But at some point, something happened. Things just disappeared and I can't explain it and I can't recreate the bug. But it means that I had to go back and redo some of those elements. And obviously they're not consistent because the inspiration took me in a different direction, but the frustration also took me in a different direction. But I had to dust myself off and get back up. So we have Rory's room, as close in spirit as I could manage at this point. Till next time.